3 simple tools from Milwaukee that won't break the bank. We're getting real simple today. In fact, we're talking about tools that are all less than 20 bucks. Well, that's kind of a lie because one of them is $21. The other two are less than $20. Let's get started. What we have are 3 different wire strippers from Milwaukee. Now, I would recommend that you don't have to have all 3 of these, but I would recommend that you have 2 of these, and I'll explain which ones in just one moment. And real quick overview is basically we have the regular wire strippers, we have the compact wire strippers, and we have the adjustable wire strippers. Now, this is pretty much the full-size version, if you will, has a few more features than the compact size wire stripper, and then these are just kind of pure and simple wire strippers without a lot of gadgets and things like that on it, but still a pretty cool tool. Now let's take a closer look at each one of these, starting with, now these are the model number 48-22-3052 or 3052s, and these are the multi-purpose wire strippers. So they do wire stripping in solid and stranded, so from 10 AWG up to 26 AWG on the solid side, and on the stranded from 12 to 28. Also, they will cut screws, so 832 as well as 632 screws. So typical receptacle type work, and switch plates switch plates and outlet plates, things like that. Those screws are typically 632 or 832. Different fixtures, ceiling fans, things like that. You can cut those down, and we'll get into details in a moment. This is spring-loaded, so in other words, for one-handed operation, works in very handy, so I don't have to open those or keep 2 fingers down here or a single finger down here to open it. It's going to open on its own from that spring right there in that opening. Also, it will do insulated and non-insulated crimping, and then obviously we have a lock here as well, and we'll also do IDC. And then even here on the tip, it will act as like a little needle nose plier, so you can grip something and pull it, maybe even do your bends in solid copper if you want to, but also these holes here will also do your bends, put your J-hooks in your solid copper if you're doing electrician type of work. But for automotive use, things like that, these will come in very handy, again with the crimping here on the both non-insulated and insulated, makes it very handy, as well as we get a solid cutter right there as well. Or I shouldn't say solid cutter, it's going to cut solid or stranded wire, but easy to cut wires right there. Now these are more of just kind of a dipped handle, but they do have a little bit of girth to them, so they still fit comfortable in the hand. Now let's switch over here to the compact wire strippers, and these are the 48-22-3044, and again they're called the compact wire stripper. So we still can strip wire from on the solid side. You see it's got labeled here on the solid and on the stranded. And also keep note that the same AWG for solid is the same size as a step down of the stranded wire. So a number 10 solid, same size as a number 12 stranded. And so we're going to get from stranded 12 to 24, and on the solid side from 10 to 22. Same needle nose type aspect there on the ends. So we can grip things and pull or bend whatever we need to on simple solutions. We don't get any bolt cutters on this. We still get a spring-loaded design, so the spring's right there in between, which again aids in not having to put another finger in there that's a pinch point to actually separate those when needed. So they're going to automatically separate. Then I can put something in there, cut it when I need to. Now we still get holes here, actually on either side for bending, although that one is kind of covered up by the lock. But right here where we can put our solid copper in and make our J-hooks if we need to. And we get cutters right there deep in the throat of the jaws as well. And these are the adjustable wire strippers. These are very handy to have, especially if you're doing any type of small data cable stuff, networking stuff, even getting into small automotive stuff. Just becomes really handy where you don't have to fiddle for a size of the wire that you're using. And now you do have to be careful that you don't cut all the way through. You do get cutters right here deep in the jaws where you can cut if you need to. But also those little V-notches right there. I can just come in here, give it a little squeeze, cut that sheath, And again, you want to be careful enough that you're not cutting any strands of wire, so you kind of got to get used to what you're working with. But also you have a little cheater right here. So this little dial right here, you can dial in to say, okay, I'm going to cut 16 gauge, turn it around to 16 gauge where it closes on the 16 gauge, and then you see right there where it's setting the opening on that V-notch to cut for 16 gauge wire. And I can cut all the way down here to 24 gauge and then get a smaller opening. So this is a very handy tool and highly recommend, but do some practice with it, get used to it before you start just, cutting through the copper on some things. Now, size of these, this one is going to be probably about 7.5 inches long. On the compact, you're looking at right at 6.5 inches long, so about an inch shorter. And then on the little adjustable, so about 5 inches long. So that gives you a kind of a size understanding of those. Now on these larger, this is some, I think this is like 14.3. I can cut through that solid, no problem at all. I can even come in here and put this in the cutting jaws, cut that sheathing off. And again, this is solid core copper, should be 14, so I can go to my 14 there, close up on it, go straight out, and you see how smooth it cuts. So I'm not cutting into the copper at all. Not having to do any twisting or anything, just clamp and lift. As I was mentioning, I can come in here on the hole here and make our J-hook. Or if I wanted to grab this with the tips and make it that way, I can do that as well. And here's some 12 gauge stranded. Now, 12 is going to be the same as 10 on the solid. Cut that nice and clean, no copper coming out with it. And I can go to my non-insulated crimper. Go to my non-insulated side. And put a nice crimp on that. No movement at all. Or I could go to my insulated crimper. So that's going to be deeper in here in the jaws. Same thing, nice tight crimp. A little too much sticking out there, but still got a good crimp on that. Now I can hit my heat shrink and close that down. Now, as I mentioned, if you're doing some electrical work, if I open these all the way up, we have some holes right here, and these are for those 632 and 832 screws. This is an 632, so I can thread it through here. Now, you want to make sure that you thread it on the side where you see the numbers, so not on the other side where you don't see the numbers, because you want to thread it through first, and then you see it sticking through right there, and then make your cut. So you're just going to close down. It's going to cut that off. And the reason is that you want to have it that way because you want to back that screw out, and it might be a little tough because it's going to straighten out those threads as it backs out. So it's going to act like a thread straightener or almost like a die or tap and straighten out those threads, so now you can thread that back into something. Versus when you're actually just cutting it with some side cutters or something, it will really mess up those threads. And then I can even go to the larger 832 as well. In cutting that, back that out, and now the threads are all good. So nice set of strippers, each one of these. Depending on what you're needing to do, here's my recommendation, that I would have either one of these two pair, probably this pair here for the ability to do some crimping on it and not have to get another tool. And I would also have this pair because these come in really handy, again, doing quick work. And pricing on these are pretty easy to stomach. So I think it's $21 for these, $16 for these, and like $11 for these. And all of these have limited lifetime warranties on them. So as long as you take care of them, they should last, shouldn't be a problem, and should be warranted from Milwaukee if something does damage on them. But again, for $10 to $20 or $21, not a bad buy whatsoever. Well, as I mentioned, my recommendation would be to have one of these two here and then also the adjustable strippers just because they're very handy. I'd also recommend a pair of flush cutters. Those are very handy to have. I wish I would have included those in these. But anyway, when dealing with wires, when dealing with wiring, when dealing with terminating wires, to have a good set of wire strippers is always good to have. To have a good set of like adjustable wire strippers or just, no frills type of wire stripping is great to have too. And I love to have cutters that are also integrated as part of the wire strippers because it's a pain not to have a cutter when you're dealing with stripping wires. As well as I mentioned, the flush cutters when you're dealing with whether you need to cut some sheathing back or flush cut a zip tie or something like that. Those are very handy to have. So check these out. We'll have links to each one of these. Also keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. If you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, if you hated our video, well, give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day. Keep smiling.